In this lesson, we're going to learn about fraction multiplication. In example number 1, we're asked to multiply 2 over 7 times 3 over 4. So we multiply the numerator's top. 2 times 3 is equal to 6, and then on the bottom, the denominators, 7 times 4 is equal to 28. Then we divide the top and the bottom by 2 to get 3 over 14, and that is our final answer. Now, sometimes it helps to simplify as we go along. Now, let's go to the whiteboard and look at another way that we can approach this problem or example. So another way that we can approach number 1, where we have 2 over 7 times 3 over 4. Now we can multiply the numerators and denominators, 2 times 3 and 7 times 4. And here what I did was I factored out the coefficient. Now, of course, what I could also do to make things easier and simplify as I go along, I could make 4 into 2 times 2. And by doing that, that means I can cancel out a 2 here and cancel out the 2 there. And that means I will get 3 over 7 times 2. And now that I have 3 over 7 times 2, well, I have 3 on the top, and then I can multiply 7 times 2 and get 14, which is the same thing as I got the other way of doing it, where I just multiplied the top, multiplied the bottom, and simplified in the end. So sometimes things can be easier if I simplify as I go along. Returning to the PowerPoint and reviewing what we just did, we multiplied the numerators and denominators. We factored out the coefficients. We divided out the common factors, meaning we canceled them out. There it was, the 2's. And we are left with the numerator 3 and the denominator 7 times 2, which is 14, to get our final answer, 3 over 14. In example number 2, we're asked to actually multiply 3 fractions, 2 over 3 times 6 over 8 times 3 over 4. And as before, whether we have 2, 3, or whatever number, we can just multiply the numerator, all the factors of the numerator, 2 times 6 times 3, and here we get 36, and we can multiply the denominators, 3 times 8 times 4, and we get 96, and then from here we can simplify. And we simplify, noticing that 12 divides into 36, and 12 divides into 96. So that means we get 3 over 8. Or we can simplify as we go along, just like I did in the previous example. So let us now go to the whiteboard and see how we can do it using that method. In example number 2, we have to multiply actually 3 fractions. So we have 2/3 times 6 over 8 times 3 over 4. And what I am going to do here is I'm going to factor out each of these numerators and denominators. And what this means is I'm going to put it in terms of, so I'm going to have 2 over 3. So I can't make that any more basic than that. But 6 I can put as 2 times 3. And 8 I can put as 2 times 2 times 2. And then finally, I can put 3, which I can't put any more basic than that. But 4 I can write as 2 times 2. Now what this does is that it makes it easy for me to start canceling. So I don't have to multiply everything across like I did a little bit earlier and then simplify. I can simplify right in the beginning, and it makes the multiplication much easier. So here and division. I cancel out a 3. Here I can cancel out a 2. So what I'm left with, here I have another 2 I can cancel out. So what I am left with finally is 3 over 2 times 2 times 2. And this is going to be equal to 3 over 8, because 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So I'll end up 3 over 8, like I did, just multiplying straight across and then simplify. Returning to our PowerPoint, we review what we just did on the whiteboard. So here we have 2 over 3 times 6 over 8 times 3 over 4, and then we break it into its fundamental parts, and notice how the 2's and the 3's cancel out to give us in the end 3 over 8. In example number 3, we're asked to multiply 2.4 over 1.2 times 3 over 4. And here we have decimals in our fractions, so we must get rid of those decimals before we can multiply the final fraction. So let's go over to the whiteboard and work this out in detail. What happens here is we actually have decimals in the fraction. So we have 2.4 and 1.2, and we're multiplying that by 3/4. Now the issue comes up here is that we first have to get rid of that decimal. So we see that the decimal terminates at the 10th place. So what we have to do is we have to multiply the top and the bottom here by 10 in order to get rid of that decimal. So what we do here is we have 2.4 times 10, and then we do 1.2 times 10, and then we have the other one, which is fine. And that's equal to, or 2.4 times 10 will give us 24. And then 1.2 times 10 will give us 12. And we multiply that by 3 over 4. Now what I'm going to do is I see that 12 goes into 24 2 times. So I'll put that 2 over 1. And I'll multiply by 3 over 4. But I see I can factor out 2 over 2. And I can cancel out those 2's. And I will get 3 over 2 as my final answer. So here I used a little bit of the factoring trick to finally get a nice simple fraction. Reviewing what we just did on the whiteboard, we had our decimal, and we multiplied our decimal on the top by 10 and on the bottom by 10 to get 24 over 12 times 3 over 4. And then we simplified as usual to finally get 3 over 2. In example number 4, we have, again, fractions and decimals. And here in this example, it would be better to do some canceling after getting rid of the decimals. Otherwise, we will have to simplify a very big number. So let us go to the whiteboard and work this out in detail. In example number 4, we have a number of decimals in our fractions. So we have 1.6 over 0.4 times 10 over 5 times 2 over 0.05. Now in this case, of course, we would have these two sets where there we see fractions. We see decimals in the first fraction and decimals in the third. Well, let's look at the first fraction and get rid of the decimals there. So we have 1.6 over 0.4. So since they're to the 10th, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by 10. So we're going to multiply this by 10 and this by 10. So that will give us 16 over 4 for the first one. The second one is okay because there's no decimals there. Now let's look at the third one. We have 2 and we have 0.05. Now, the thing is whatever we do to one of them, we have to do whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. And in this case, we have to multiply the bottom by 100 in order to get rid of that decimal on the bottom, but we also must multiply the top by 100. So that means we get on the top 200, and on the bottom, so that'll move the decimal, we'll get 5. So now we have all three fractions, we remove the decimals, and now we're going to put it all back together again. So for the first fraction, it becomes 16 over 4. The second fraction, well, we didn't have to do anything because that was okay. The third fraction becomes 200 over 5. Now, the easiest thing to do is to reduce these fractions because it's really relatively easy, because it turns out that 4 goes into 16 4 times. 5 goes into 10 2 times, and 5 goes into 200 40 times. So if we just multiply this through, we get 320 as our final answer. So now let us return to the PowerPoint and review what we just did on the whiteboard. So we first had to get rid of the decimals. So in my first fraction, I had to multiply the top and the bottom by 10 to get rid of the decimals there. My second fraction, I just left alone. My third fraction, I had to multiply the top and the bottom by 100 because the bottom one was in the hundredths place, and whatever I do to the bottom, I must do the top. And then I factor, multiply, and simplify as usual, and in the end, I just ended up with 320. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, and take care. Bye.